For years, Roblox games have been exclusively two things: you and the game. There hasn't been much outside stimuli or depth to a lot of the most popular games on Roblox. On one hand, this is a good thing, as it allows developers to focus on more of the gameplay aspects of their games rather than the artistic stuff, while allowing you, the player, to immerse yourself into its world much more directly. However, without that attention to detail and drive, you end up with basically every simulator on Roblox. Vapid husks of non-gameplay that are so blown out and saturated, I end up with third-degree burns on the back of my eyes just by looking at them. These games may have something that kind of resembles something that could be called gameplay, but they lack character. And that's exactly what we're talking about in this video. Character. Specifically, character design. You see, ever since returning to Roblox, I've been finding all of the cool, underrated Roblox games that I had no idea existed 2 years ago. And while a lot of these games are completely different from their gameplay to their art style, they all have one very important thing in common: awesome characters. Most Roblox games don't need to have cool characters to be good. Phantom Forces, for example, doesn't have a single named character in the entire game. Instead, Phantom Forces works because of the great gameplay loop and fun weapons. It's a fun game that isn't limited by outside factors like a story, so it can focus all of its attention on making a fun FPS game. And Epic Minigames hasn't survived as long as it has because it has stuff like world building, but rather because the lead developers continue to support the game by making minigames that are actually fun. Stuff like this is true for 99% of Roblox games out there. Because of the nature of gaming itself, you, the player, are the one experiencing the game. You, the player, are the one going through all the mechanics that it has to offer. But as someone who knows next to nothing about game design, it's in my humble opinion that the Roblox games that put in the time and effort to develop amazing complex characters are the ones that stand out from the rest of the games on Roblox. What's made me realize that the most is this: the makeshift Sebastian plush from Pressure. When this thing launched, it was fully funded in 2 minutes. It took 2 minutes for this thing to reach 100% of its goal. And by the half-hour mark, it was funded over 1,000% of that original goal.
Oh man, I fucking love money.
Now that's a story for another video, but it was also the exact moment that I realized that with the power of cool characters, Roblox games can transcend the very identity of being a Roblox game. Having cool characters allows people to identify themselves with your game. While on the one hand, that can be a very slippery slope, allowing people to get invested in the story and motivations of the characters within games creates a level of depth that cannot be reached by games that don't do this. A great case study for this is the fan base of fighting. The sheer power of having cool characters was shown to the world when the trailer for Coil, the newest fighter as of writing this, was released. Fighting ended up trending with over 17,000 tweets, and for a game that can barely crack 1,000 players on a good day, that's absolutely insane. It's like by having this cool new character, Fighting managed to summon like 16,000 players who are now suddenly invested in this guy. So I decided to get to the bottom of this. I wanted to know exactly how these cool characters are made. What is the process like? What kinds of details make or break a character? Because I'm the kind of person who wants to know everything about everything, rather than banging my head against a wall all day, I decided to simply ask someone who knew a lot more about this stuff than me. Here is a link to a game. I've kind of built a little like interview set. The place is a bit of a mess. I didn't really have time to clean, but
You're good, you're good. Oh my god. I really like the decor.
You like the ambiance? Yeah,
I do.
My storage locker's full. Don't look out the window.
No worries. Don't look at. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh my god!
This is SODAKETTLE, the person behind basically every piece of visual content in fighting, responsible for concept art and modeling, and an insanely talented Roblox developer who has been very kind in lending me an hour to pick her brain about all things character design. Oh, and before we get into the super complicated stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're getting so close to that 100,000 sub mark, and if that happens, I can get into the STAR program. It's been a goal of mine for a really long time, so if you want to see that, click that button. It's completely free, and you can always unsub later if you feel like it.
I actually prepared a slideshow.
Really?
In advance.
Wow.
Yes.
I've got
Yeah,
I've got a
okay.
green screen in the place, so I could put a bunch of slides on the green screen. I like your t-shirt. Yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe what you could do is just go through your process creatively of making a character for fighting.
I'm so glad you asked that. I have a whole slideshow. Let me bring it up. What is fighting? For those of you not in the know, fighting is basically team-based shooter based on old Roblox, and the gimmick is that all the characters are based on Roblox gears, and they are directly named after the gear they are inspired off of. So we have Sword here, and then we have Rocket, and then we have Medkit. So this is the design cycle that the Baguio developers go through. We start with, oh crap, I need to make a new character. And then we have the Baguio original patented 3 a.m. draw call, where we all get into a call. And I don't know if you know what draw call is, but it's basically...
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's a program where you can invite a limited amount of users onto basically this big whiteboard, and you can just draw on it, and it's cool because like anyone can contribute to the canvas. Then we workshop the character until we deem it cool enough. This could mean a lot of different things, and then it eventually does become cool enough, and then this is when I do the 3D model and I pass it off to Pix or Aiden for animation, and then it gets added into the game and coded and all that, and then the cycle repeats.
So like, do you guys workshop the gameplay? Like, do you have sort of the abilities and the gameplay style that you want to achieve before you come up with the design, or are they kind of intermixed?
It depends, because we had a very old design document like outlining all the 21 fighters we eventually want to add into the game, but then over time we realized, oh, some of these aren't going to work out, or we just weren't happy with the move set with some of them. So like, while we're also developing the design, we're also workshopping the kit and whatnot, and like what would be cool, and then we look at things from other games and we try to like see, hey, this is fun, why don't we add this and this?
I really love I think the big thing that I love the most about the characters specifically is how consistent the design language manages to be. So like, how do you sort of maintain that like fighting look?
The subject of today's study is going to be not a kind of lesser known character, but I think he's a good case study for the fighting design in general. A lesser known character, Ice Dagger. He is one of the Sloth events in the game, so he'll add a random modifier at the end of the round or near the end of the round, and his specifically is he'll shoot like little ice bullets around the arena. So he's kind of a rare chance for him to show up, but he's a minor character. But despite that, I have tried to put a lot of thought into his design. Going into what makes a character, we have all these different questions. Where are they from? What is their history? Does their upbringing affect the design? What kind of personality do they have? These are like some of the questions we'll bring up like when we're designing a character, because like we're kind of trying to ask more questions, get them more involved with the world building. And I think asking all these questions and trying to give them an answer for the specific character we're trying to make really like sells the fact that this is a character that belongs in our world that we're making. Upon first glance, Ice Dagger doesn't really look all that, well, it's a blue sword. How do we make this into a fighting character? So if we break it down, Ice Dagger, well, it's an ice sword. From the name, we can tell it's probably Frozen related. It's an ice themed weapon. So the character could either be wearing like warm clothing or something related to that and whatnot, and that ties into the character design, right? Another part about the Ice Dagger is that it is part of a series of gears called the Sloth, or the sword fight on the height swords, and it is the smallest weapon out of all of them. So because they're part of this big series, they'd probably be part of like a family or a group. There's the character connection. You'd want to connect them to all these other characters that we have, right? And then we have the dagger part. It's much smaller compared to all of these other ones. So the character would probably be younger or shorter or like different from all these other ones. Fighting has the advantage of it's based on pre-existing property somewhat. Yeah, we get to build off of all this already established stuff and like try to interpret it in our own ways that I think makes it unique to fighting. What we end up when we combine all of these is this little ice guy. He definitely looks a lot younger. He's very cozy. He's wearing like the fur collar and stuff and the cape and all the fuzzy winter gear. In the lore, the swords or the Spoth, they're a very big part of fighting's world building. They are most recognized by the fact that they have wings. So we gave him wings that moth wings or butterfly wings are like best suited for this character because, you know, he's like ice. It's like delicate and whatnot. So finding things you wouldn't normally see there, because like this is all from like a retextured blue sword that Roblox uploaded onto their site like years ago, right? I'm really happy with how he turned out because I think he perfectly encapsulates what a modern day ice dagger would look like.
There's another thing, actually, getting onto the topic of the world building. That's part of the reason why I and many other people kind of gravitate towards this game, is that it isn't just here's characters, here's maps, go crazy. There's like characters have beef with each other. And then I see people all the time, they're like, they role play as all the characters and then they beef with each other as if it's like in the game.
Oh yeah.
So how did that kind of happen? Was that sort of just like a natural progression of, hey, we have all these characters and they're all based off of these references to old Roblox gear? How did this sort of turn into like a world, like the fighting cinematic universe?
I can pinpoint exactly when that happened, but for me to do that, I need to get another picture. 1 second. Up until a certain point, we kind of just were making characters. There was no world building. There was none of what we have now. But yeah, we were kind of just making characters. And then one day I had the idea. I'm like, hey, why don't we just give this guy beef with Medkit? This is the concept that basically started it all. This guy is Subspace, you know, based on Subspace Chirp Mine. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I think the characters that we have now are cool, but what if we give them a little bit more of like relationship with each other? So in the very, very, very old Medkit design, he had bandages over his eyes, and there was literally like no reason as to why he had a missing eye. I was like, what if there was a reason? What if there was more? And I was like, yeah, we introduced Subspace. He was basically supposed to be the anti-Medkit. He does poison damage and whatnot, directly going against Medkit's healing. So these characters are basically pit against each other, and I think that makes for a really cool dynamic. And then you have like the whole lore aspect of it where he's actually responsible for ripping out Medkit's eye. Not very nice. I think it really just started with Subspace because he was like our first villain almost.
It's such a cool way to just very simply add like a little bit of that world building and just really start that sort of chain reaction to where we are now, where it's like all the characters seem very connected to each other. What's like the connection to the actual gameplay that these characters have?
It's a little bit exaggerated because sometimes what they do in the game is slightly more exaggerated for gameplay. Medkit can literally like revive people from the dead, and I think if he could do that like canonically, that would be a little f***ed up, or like that would be a little
world breaking. I feel like
Subspace, going back to Subspace, he's just the one I have right now, but his whole deal is that he's basically rotting from the inside out. As a side effect of this rot, he produces these fumes, this gas. This gas mask that he wears is like kind of like a reverse gas mask where it actually is supposed to keep fumes in because his body is rotting and producing all this poisonous gas. And how that affects gameplay is, well, his entire kit is based around slowly whittling down enemies. Basically,
it's all poison damage. Is there any sort of cool thing that maybe someone who isn't a game dev like myself would not think to ask?
This is the biggest advice I would give to people who want to just make characters in general, is you don't need it figured out. We didn't have it figured out. All of this turned into this. There was 3 years in between how fighting started and what it is today. Nobody entirely has their characters and world fully planned out from the moment of conception. So don't be scared to experiment. That is like a huge piece of advice. Experiment. Just make something that you would like, which also ties into my ending slide. In conclusion, at the end of the day, you're ultimately making a character that you like. Don't worry about what other people want. Fan bases and audiences naturally form around media a team/creator is truly passionate in, which is basically what ended up happening in the fighting. I think we just it started from this silly little concept like, oh yeah, what if the Roblox skiers were like designed to be people. Now we're here. We got like a ton of lore and like so much stuff that's coming out and a bunch of like story related things that's still under wraps, but we are very excited to explore in the future. Like however long as that may take. Again, thank you for letting me do this. I do streams and stuff on Twitch.
Yeah, plug your socials. I'll put them in the video.
SODAKETTLE on Twitch, but I try to teach people my 3D modeling process and my character designing process, and I also answer a lot of dev-related questions and game development questions on there.
Everybody watching, go follow Soda. Once again, thank you to SODAKETTLE for her amazing insight into the ins and outs of Roblox character design. I hope you learned about as much from this as I did. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.